Zay Frank was my first suspect that I ever identified. Zay Frank, as in the content creator, he has a channel on YouTube. His full name is Hosea Jan Frank. He's from Guilderland, New York. He's listed as being such. His name is spelled, Zay, the name he goes by, Zay Frank. Zay is spelled Z-E, and then Frank spelled F-R-A-N-K. I think his whole family's in on this. I think that this cult is generational. I think that the things they do are passed down from generation to generation within families. I don't necessarily think everybody in the cult was born into it. I think some people are, though, and I think that he and Zay Frank and his family are connected to the Frankist movement. I won't get into what the Frankist movement is. You should read about it. The first thing I realized, and I was a fan of his, and this was the first year coming up on the end of the first year of COVID. This was end of January, beginning of February, roughly 2021. I was a fan of his. I was watching some of his videos on YouTube. I was watching some of his old video series. This guy was the president of BuzzFeed Motion Pictures. He had one of the first viral videos ever. He's very intelligent. He has a degree in neurolinguistic programming from Brown University. His wife, Jody Brandt, has a degree in psychology from Brown University, where they met. I was a fan of his. I was just watching some of his videos one day and practicing my guitar, which I hadn't picked up in a long time, and I'd been teaching myself some Sanskrit recently. I wanted to learn that language. COVID shut down my jobs, and I found myself with more time on my hands. Sorry, I'm getting rid of messages. And it just hit me. I just realized it was like zing when it was like an epiphany, is that Zay Frank's rubber duck logo is meant to represent an Abraxas. I realized how perfect it was. It does a very good job of representing roughly the same things that the Abraxas represents. The Abraxas, A-B-R-A-S-A-X. Sometimes it's spelled A-B-R-A-X-A-S. But I believe the original spelling is the former one I gave. It's an occult symbol, image. It sort of represents the devil, the fallen child, the child archetype. It's responsible for bringing together the two opposites. I mentioned it in a video already and showed some images of it. The symbols video, which I'll be making more versions of that and more extended videos for that, because there are a lot more symbols that we will have to be going over. And at first, I was just like, nah. I think it wasn't just, I think it was my subconscious mind had already noticed a bunch of stuff in the frames of his videos in the background and was adding it all up. And then the epiphany, it culminated, manifested in an epiphany about the rubber duck being an Abraxas. And then when I looked closer, and there's a book on the bookshelf in the background in a lot of the videos he makes for his second YouTube series that he put out back in roughly 2006. That was, I believe at the time when I realized it, I was watching a video from that series. There's actually a book on the bookshelf behind him, usually in that series, that the title is Look Closer. And as I looked into him more, and there's all these things, telltale signs, symbols, once you pick up on them, they're actually laid out in the scene, in the frame of his videos, in the background. So the more, then that, I think that those things all started to add up in my subconscious mind, and then kind of flowered into, oh shit. And the more I looked into it, the more I started checking out this guy and his family in the background, and the more I started looking at the content he was putting out and really looking closer at the imagery and symbolism that he's using, and paying closer attention to the words he's using, phrases he's using, veiled references he's making, the more I start to realize, oh shit, he's sending messages. He's saying things to people, certain people, not everyone, in a veiled way. He's using kind of a secret code of symbols, and a lot of it's to do with sort of this, like, occulted wisdoms, understandings about the world, life, existence. I realized he's communicating with people in a code that is right out in the open, and that's the best way to hide a secret. It's right out in the open. So if you know the code, then you recognize it and you know what is being said. But if you don't know, then it goes right over your head, because it just looks like typical things. It just looks like some books behind on the bookshelf with some figurines and stuff like that. And so any random person will see, that scene, a video with mostly just a person in the middle talking, and they won't really even pay attention to what's in the background. Only certain people will pick up on the stuff in the background and will know what it all means. Do you understand? And please understand, every step of the way I've been second guessing, and this can't be, and nah, you're getting out of your head and your imagination. And the more I looked, the more connections I was finding, and the more their belief system started lining up, and I started understanding it. Like, the more the symbols and the references and stuff started to point to a belief system. There were patterns that I was seeing and noticing that it wasn't just, wasn't just seeing him showing these patterns. Some associates of his. And then during the course of my research into he and his family, I put together that they identify as vampires. That's one of the ways they identify. It's like a symbol they use to identify themselves to one another. They're like energy leeches, soul leeches, parasite, there's a lot to do with it that connects them to the vampire imagery a lot, including even just the color scheme, black, white, red, and yellow, or possibly sometimes gold is a replacement. And there will be videos I'll be putting out specifically about that stuff. But it was when I realized that this group really likes the vampire imagery, that was when an old classmate of mine popped into my head, and I've learned at this point to trust my instincts and my gut, and trust my subconscious mind, my conscious mind, and my gut kind of work together pretty well enough that I know when I've been thinking on something for a while, and I'm trying to figure out something, and somebody or something else sort of seems to randomly pop into my head, it's typically not random. So this old classmate of mine from high school always gave me the creeps. And he's a big name. He's a big name musician now. He's a rock star. And so his name's Chris Thompson, and he's a member of Vampire Weekend. That's the name of the band, Vampire Weekend. And he popped right into my head, and I was like, Chris Thompson, because I'd already at this point also worked out, like, I think I'm dealing with a group of artists, musicians, writers, content creators, celebrities. I think that they're worshiping the fallen sun in the context of being sort of the patron of all artists and the arts, which Devil is known to have been that. It seems to be making certain sacrifices and such of children. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be like, There are lots of ways to sacrifice a child. Raping your own child over and over again is, I'd say, sacrificing them. It seems they might possibly be doing this because they think it'll please this, if you want to call it a deity or a deep dark thing inside of us, in our nature, that will grant to them or give them like artistic inspiration, creative inspiration. It seems that might be one motivation for them. There's going to be a few different things to kind of tied into this, motivations and psychologies and such. But I was working out, I was seeing these patterns in their work, the work of certain artists, musicians and such. And once I identified, I was dealing with, I think, a group of artists, and that they identify themselves as vampires, or identify with the vampire figure in many ways. That was when Chris Thompson popped into my head. And I've learned to trust my subconscious mind and my gut a lot more as I get older. And so I hadn't thought about Chris Thompson in years and years. And so I started looking into he and his band, and all the symbols were there, all the stuff. I mean, even more so with them than with a lot of others. Kicker is he's married to a chick I went to school with. She went to school with both of us. He was the year ahead of us. She and I graduated the same year. Like, I never cared for him. I never liked him much. But I never had a problem with her. Like, I don't want to ruin her life, accusing her husband of something like this if he's not guilty of it. But I'm beyond questioning it at this point. I've been back and forth for a year and a half, 2 years now, questioning and running it past people who don't know any of us, me or he, or have no dog in the race, and are not fans of any of these people, and have never heard of some like Zay Frank, right? And just telling them, here's what happened, here's what I've realized, here's what I realized, and then here's what I realized, and here's what I realized, and here's what I realized. And they're like, yeah. So it gets crazier than this. It's just there's more confirmation than just my research. Once I identified Chris Thompson, I started getting really feeling very overwhelmed, and very much like, I need to talk to somebody about this. I really need to talk to somebody about this. I think I was already starting to try to talk to my mom about it a little bit. She does not want to hear anything about it. She's not interested. She wants me to drop it. But I felt like I really need to talk to somebody who knew more about occult stuff, who just might be more willing to really sit down and like discuss things, some of the things I was finding for a while, not just have like maybe 23-minute conversations, but like really sit and like think it through with me, or at least give me like some leads, other stuff I could look at, other people I could talk to who've looked into similar stuff. I don't know. And my immediate thought after Chris Thompson was Michael Maxwell. Michael Maxwell was an art teacher at that same school, the Petty School, Peddie, in Hightstown, New Jersey. It's a private prep boarding school that I went to from 8th through 12th grade. Sorry, my brain it's just so much. My brain's juggling. I'm losing track. So my first thought was Michael Maxwell. He was an art teacher there, and I hadn't seen him or Chris Thompson since maybe like a year after I graduated. But Michael Maxwell, even though I technically actually never had a class with him, I always considered him to be like my mentor when I was in school, and looked up to him and kind of thought he was cool because he was into occult stuff like I was. Like researching like Illuminati, stuff like that. And there weren't a lot of people I'd ever met that was into any of that, found it interesting or even wanted to talk about it much. And he was one of those few people. And that plus, you have to be reasonably intelligent to teach at Petty, let alone be a student. And also he would have known or known of, at least like known Chris Thompson. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to contact Maxwell. I need to talk to somebody about this who can maybe just, I don't know. I just knew like this was just so much, and I was just like, what is this? What? Like, I wasn't looking for this. I was thinking about, trying to find a husband. You're in your mid-30s. You want a family. Like, I had totally other goals. But I just couldn't drop this. Like, we're talking about kids being abused. So I contacted Buddy Perseus. He's so cute. He's my buddy. I love him. He's my little buddy bear. So I contacted Maxwell. I Googled him. He's not a teacher there anymore. He's like a big name artist operating out of New York. And so I think he has like an office or something in New York City, but he also has residential addresses in like the Catskills area and so on and so forth. I found his email address on his portfolio website. I emailed him some of the very beginnings of my research, not even like all the stuff I had then, let alone all the stuff I have now. With just like a little message that was like, hey, sorry I dropped this on you, like after all this time, but I'm really concerned and I need someone to talk to about this. And the way he acted after that made me look closer at him. So the next day after I emailed him, I went back. I still hadn't gotten a response. I'd gotten like an automated response, like, I'm out of the office type deal. I'll get back to you soon. I went back to his online portfolio and it was gone. It wasn't exactly gone, I realized, because I played around a bit, because I was like, what? That's weird. After I just emailed him last night, like, suddenly his portfolio's gone. It wasn't gone. I played around a bit. It turned out he replaced his homepage with a generic pill popping site, like a generic pharmacy site, which I looked up that site because you can look up, like, it had a phone number on it. It's listed in a lot of sites as being like a scam pharmacy site that overcharges people and their cards and stuff. And it's like, why would you make that your homepage site? All of a sudden, some generic scam pharmacy selling like crap Viagra. And I just started getting that gnawing in my gut, like, what's going on with this? And I poked around a bit and realized he just replaced the homepage, the rest of the website's up. Because I just pulled up like the main URL and then just did, the / and paintings, because I knew there was like a paintings page. And that took me to the paintings page. And from there I could just navigate through the rest of the site. It was just the homepage that was down. And so I started looking closer at his paintings, because I didn't bother really looking at his artwork recently. Like, I hadn't really looked at his artwork since I was in high school. And I saw stuff. It was more the titles, a lot of the titles that started concerning me right off the bat. And then as I looked more at the actual paintings, like, they would look abstract to most people, mostly, but they're full of hidden imagery and symbolism in there, and it's occult stuff, and it's not good stuff. So, for example, like, some of the titles, one title for one of his paintings is Phosphenes. He has like a Phosphenes series, Phosphenes Walt Whitman. And remember, not any one of these things, all of it added up. It's Phosphenes Walt Whitman. For those of you who don't know, Walt Whitman's notorious boy lover. He helped found and run NAMBLA, the North American Man-Boy Love Association. And then there's a whole other painting entitled, what was it? The Centaur, was it? What was his name? There was a centaur, famous centaur. What was his name? The famous centaur from Greek mythology. Oh my gosh. My brain's getting tired. My mind's getting tired. My Adderall's running out in my system. Chiron, Chiron. Chiron. He was the famous centaur in Greek myths. Anybody who knows the myths, the stories behind Chiron, know that, like, there's a kind of a sugar-coated version. He was the coach, the trainer to all the great heroes, like Hercules. And then there's, like, the more realistic, darker side version of it, which is he had inappropriate sexual relationships with his students. Like, kind of how, like, the Spartan soldiers would take on a new boy trainee soldier, and they'd have a relationship in the barracks together. So there's that. Then there was another painting called, like, Piper at the Gates of Dawn, which is the name of a Pink Floyd album. Pink Floyd is another way that they symbolize themselves. Why? Because pink stands for youth, innocence, kids, and little girls. Floyd means gray or gray-haired, like an old man. Remember, it's bringing together two opposites. Making magic in a lot of ways is bringing together two opposites. It can be healthy. It can be man, woman, husband, wife. the more extreme the opposites, in theory, the more extreme the energy created. Do you understand? So child and old man. So that's one of the ways that they identify themselves, like having a Pink Floyd poster on the wall. But like I said, you can't just go off one thing. It's got to be like a laundry list of shit that they show. I'm not just seeing like a Pink Floyd poster on the wall going, oh, they're in the cult. Like, that's stupid. No. It's like the Pink Floyd, and this, and this, and that, and this, and like, it's ridiculous amounts of. So there's almost no smoking guns, but it's like, come on, dudes. And once you understand what the symbols all mean, it's like. And then you see them all showing them, all making these references to the same symbols, referencing Carl Jung, making veiled references like you have to mold the sapling to the stake, which is a Carl Jung quote. Stake is their pinky dick, sapling is a little girl, because the tree of life is a woman's body. Sapling, tree of life. I will be making videos on tree of life and how it symbolizes a lot of things, including a woman's body, because that's another occult symbol. So a sapling is a little girl's body. There's a lot to this. Once you like, so again, you need like, I'm coming from like over two solid decades of studying occult symbols and cult history and all that stuff. So it's like I have to get you guys caught up to speed on understanding this stuff so you can see the code too. Because once you see it, you're gonna be like, oh shit, these people are talking to each other. Like, you're gonna be like, come on, dudes. We were not born yesterday. You're telling me you all just happen to all really be into like centaurs and hummingbirds and sipping at sunflowers. You all really like Carl Jung. You all have a hard-on for Carl Jung. It's clear. Like, what's going on, dudes? And also, by the way, so Piper at the Gates of Dawn is also the devil, because the devil is, first of all, one of the morning stars. And it's like the Pied Piper leading kids away. Piper at the Gates of Dawn. And again, also, it's the title of a Pink Floyd album, and Pink Floyd. Little girl, old man. This is how they reference themselves, in clever, creative ways, like with mostly imagery. You just have to understand what the imagery means. We're talking about child rapists. They're not going to make it easy for you guys, and they're not all idiots, okay? You will get some that are like average or below average intelligence, and they're likely pretty easily caught by typical cops, family members, but then you're gonna get like Moriartys, okay, guys, like that are gonna put all of their intelligence and education and creativity to use, trying to fool you into thinking that they're upstanding people when they're really trying to frequent the child brothel down the street just under your nose, and you don't know that there's a child brothel, or that like 3 of your neighbors in the neighborhood go there, like, because you don't know the code, you don't know the symbols. Get it? You guys need to know the symbols. And a lot of this, I'm starting to suspect a lot of the occult world is occulted because it is being used by pedophiles. Occulted just means secreted. It's being used by pedophiles. It's not really like, a secret wisdoms. It's like, it's like the Elysian mysteries, I think. So that it was like a festival, almost like Burning Man, that they would have back in ancient Greek times. Anyone could go. Kids could, hop on down the road to the festival. The dads, the dudes, young men, young ladies. The only people barred from going to the Elysian festivities were the mothers. Why do you suppose that is? And don't you dare say, they had to watch babies and kids. They were smart enough back then to figure out, Myrtle, you watched all the kids this year. Well, Gladys and I go off to the festivities, and then next year I'll watch them, and then the year after Gladys will watch them. You know, a lot of these, like, a lot of them were highborn too, and they, like, you know, they had nanny nursemaids and stuff for their kids and shit, like, and if they wanted to go out somewhere, they could go, you know. Why weren't mothers allowed to go to the Lucian festivities? I strongly suspect, because it was probably a lot of older men drugging and getting drunk, a bunch of young kids, stupid young kids, who are desperate to, like, be considered adults and cool. And the dudes are like, yeah, here, take this, put it in your mouth, and drink some of this, and come sit on my lap, and I'll show you the Eleusinian mysteries. But a mom, you're not going to pull that shit over on a mom, because mom is going to see, like, you know, a mom can get crazy wild. She'll buck wild. She'll, like, you know, flash. She'll drink, show your taste. Woo! Girls' night out, blah, blah. But she'll sober up real quick if she thinks a dude's raping a kid. And you watch how fast she takes her frying pan out and starts bashing the shit out of you. So, like, the moms weren't, I strongly suspect moms were not allowed to go to the Lucian festivities, because what was really going on there is dudes were, under the guise of, we're revealing festivity, like, secret wisdoms to these kids. Like, no, you're raping them. Because you can use sex and that kind of interaction between two bodies, two human bodies, as sort of, let's say, a roadmap, training, teaching guide for deeper mysteries. That's a lot of tantric sex rituals and such. So it's like, come here, honey. You know, take this pill and drink some of this liquor, and I'll show you, like, how Zeus illuminated Europa or some shit. Like, you know, moms are not going to stand for that. Not real moms. Lucian festivities would have been a total drag. I gotta cut it off here. I'm getting too tired. But that was the beginning of how I started. Those are some of my first suspects, and there's so much more. It gets crazier with Max, but I really gotta cut it off here. I'm getting too tired. And it gets crazier with Zay Frank, because he's done things that he's practically told me, yeah, you're right about me, in veiled ways. They don't use, like, direct words, because they're pussies. They're big old fucking... You are, aren't you? You know you are. You're pussy cowards, aren't you? Why don't you just say it plainly? Why don't you just... Go ahead. Make a video. Put it out there with your faces. You're right, Kat. Actually. I dare you. Or, like, I'm right at least about a good portion of it. And I'm right about you're doing indecent things with children. And if you were real men, you would fess up to it, since you've been spotted. You've been spotted. You're caught. Come clean. Come on. Like, how much longer do we have to drag this nonsense out? You know, they know they've been spotted. They know. Max told them. They know about me. I'm not a secret to them. How much longer are y'all gonna be like little pussy asshole baby boys? That's what I want to know. Like, when are you just gonna be men and go, yeah, okay, we're caught. Like, what's the George Washington lessons? I will not tell a lie. Fucking man up and just take your comeuppance. Go sit in a fucking prison cell. Apparently it's not forever. It's just a lifetime. Get over it. What, I mean, how many lifetimes did you steal from? Like, how many kids did you guys fuck over? Even if they're still alive, like. And I don't want to hear any bullshit about, because I do think that they remember, we're dealing with very intelligent people with degrees in how the human mind works. So I do think that they probably try to do things like program the minds of their children. I would not be surprised to find that they tinker around with the minds of kids that they have guardianship over. And likely try to do things like cause alternate personalities to form. It might be easier to abuse a kid if you can just abuse one of their personalities and get them to bury that personality. It's a DID, dissociative identity disorder. Oh, we're gonna get into way more of this stuff, but I do have, it's late. I'm tired. Those are some of my suspects, some of my first suspects. The story gets crazier with their behavior and more of the connections. But I gotta start doing this. Sorry, those are my cats. Are you alright? Stop, guy. You alright, baby? They're just we're in a weird place. They're getting spooked by shadows. Yeah, every day, every second I waste, it affords them more time to possibly hurt more children. So I can't wait anymore. I just need to start releasing this stuff. Hopefully people will start taking it seriously, and start asking more questions. Like, what's the other stuff you have on them? What are the other connections you've made? Hopefully, maybe people will start looking into it themselves. Like, anyway, it all is important. Every image you see, guys, if you don't realize how much you let images tell you what to do all day, you let colors tell you when to slow down and stop and drive. Red, yellow, green. You let colors tell you what to do when you're driving. Like, images tell you to do a lot. Images are sending you messages all the time, all around you. Most people aren't conscious of it. And so we're not just talking complex images. Sometimes I'm working out patterns, and it's like color codes that they use. Blue over red. So we're going to get into a lot more of this. There's going to be individual videos, and I'm mostly just been trying to figure out how to parcel up this information into the individual videos, because a lot of it's interconnected. So please bear with me. Please be patient with me. Dudes, do I really have to make all the videos explaining all the shit and how you guys are likely abusing kids? Do I really have to do that? Or can you guys just be men for once? All right. Good night.